About as an artist, when making music was my priority, I wanted to go harder than everybody and like rap all the time and like spend a lot of nights up till 6, 7 in the morning working on songs and going to shows and being around people that would inspire me. Like I'm comfortable saying like as a fan of art, music, and culture, like I put my time in with hip hop, and as a creator, like I try to really take it serious and like practice, rehearse, freestyle. Always be writing and making songs, recording with different people. When we started throwing shows, I wanted to throw more shows than everybody. I wanted to really be out there and like showcase the best people that I knew, and then meet other people I thought were dope through throwing shows. And whether it was DIY spots, basements, living rooms, backyards, venues, clubs, bars, galleries, whatever it was, churches, like we did a lot of shows over a 10 or 15 year time period. And now getting into land stuff, it's a different type of go hard. Like with art and music, it may mean going to the event at midnight and starting at 1 in the morning. It may mean throw a 24-hour party. It may mean in order to dress and prepare the space, you get there at 7 in the morning and you don't leave until, the next day. And you put in work for 18 to 20 hours and make very little money. There are all types of sacrifices you have to make in terms of time and effort and labor and money in order to throw a whole lot of shows or in order to try to make a life out of making art. But when it comes to land, it's a different thing where I feel like almost everyone has a creative streak, and making art as a profession is like all the way over here, and being a creative person's over here, and in between is where a lot of people exist. And most people that I meet don't actually want a profession of making art or music, but they want it to be more than a hobby, and they'd like to be able to make enough money on it to not have another day job. But the reality of if you want to be a everyday working rapper, then you're going to have to do things that a lot of people aren't really willing to do if they have the talent. But most people want to be more than like a hobbyist rapper or whatever, or like hobbyist painter. And so you find everything in between. When it comes to land, it's a whole different thing because of the cost, the time, the type of labor you got to put in. And so I don't think it's quote unquote for everybody to like leave the city and buy land. I don't look at the type of labor you got to put in. And so I don't think it's quote unquote for everybody to like leave the city and buy land. I don't look at like everyone needs to take on the responsibility of renovating a house or learning how to build their own house. I don't think everyone needs to invest all the time and effort that it may take in order to go to a more rural area with limited resources and build something from it. But I've been indie for my entire pursuit of art music. Like my whole approach, as soon as I realized, wait, your editor or the publisher or the people that own the magazine, newspaper, or periodical can tell you what you're allowed to say or not. Well, as a writer, what's the point of me if you can then dictate what the end message is in terms of being a correspondent or working in the news? Your editor or network can tell you, they like show you the teleprompter and you just say what is given to you. And I'm sure there are writers and people that help produce content, but again, you're not really indie. When it came to teaching, you have to teach what the Department of Education tells you to teach. I didn't want to do that. Music and art was the only place where I could, from my heart, express my truth to the world. And once I figured out a way where you can make money doing that and not have to sell your soul, not have to do corny ass shit, then that was like, oh, I have to try to figure this out. With land stuff, it's a whole different element when you need to invest $150,000 up front into a property or into a house, or if you need to invest $80,000 up front into a house and then another $50,000 to renovate it, and it takes a year and a half to do so, and you have to deal with lawyers and architects and engineers, and it's a different world. And so I don't think it's for everybody, but I also have to be honest that like I don't necessarily think everyone has the same needs. And so for people like me, for people that want space, that want to be able to dictate what happens in their circumference, that wants to be able to walk outside and not have a neighbor right in your business immediately, for people that want the fresh air, the clean water, see the animals run around, like people are like afraid to come out here, and I'm more afraid of the animals in New York City. Like the rats go hard in New York City. Out here, nothing will attack you. The deer run away, the groundhogs run away, the rabbits run away, the little voles and mice and field mice, whatever, they run away. We don't see the bobcats. There are no pumas. You might hear some coyotes. You see some, what are those, fishers and other small marmots, things of that nature. The beavers, they're all cool. So if you're into that, if you want to have like apple trees and pear trees and peach trees and grape vineyard without like being a arborist or agriculturalist or farmer, you can do that outside the city. In Washington, D.C., you're not allowed to own a chicken. So if you wanted to have fresh eggs and chicken that you've reared, you can't do that in Washington, D.C. So if you're a person that would want to have more food autonomy or food sovereignty, then we're talking about buying land somewhere. We're talking about then the time and effort that it takes. And it's hard, I know. And people are like, man, you make it sound like it's easy to just move out the city and buy property. I didn't say that at all. But I also know how hard it is to live in New York City. Like after living in Brooklyn for 15 years, anything people say is hard, I can be like, well, if you figured out how to live in New York City for 12 years, you already have done really hard shit. And the notion of, well, it will be hard to move out to a rural area. What will we do? How will we keep the same life? You won't keep the same life. You will end up doing different shit. You will end up meeting new people. You will end up going on adventures you never would have guessed. And it doesn't mean you have to leave your old life. Like we did the hybrid theory where we kept an apartment in Brooklyn. We bought a property up here that just was land initially. It was $20,000. So it was just conservation land. No house on it. We didn't have to worry about anyone stealing the copper piping or breaking into the house while we weren't there. It's just forestry. And we bought it from the Otsego Land Trust. Once we met folks from them, we started meeting people in the area that were interested in conservation, that were interested in nature, that were interested in ecosystems and education and what have you. And realized like this would be a good place for actual residential property. Found that property. At that point, we were only coming up here 4 months out of the year, like May, because Melissa still worked in the school, like May through September, basically. And we're learning what you have to do if you now deal with a house, if you're used to being in an apartment. But again, it wasn't full time. We didn't get a 5-bedroom house. We also didn't buy a house from 1805. We bought a single wide that's actually a modular that was built in my lifetime. So you want them to be within the past 20 years if you can. But if you go back even to the 80s, you can find acceptable models. I avoid the stuff that's like older than the 70s or built differently. But we didn't take on a house that was like a 1790s farmhouse that had everything falling apart. No heat, no plumbing, no wiring. We didn't do that. We moved into a place that you could move in ready. Now, we didn't want to stay there moving ready. We pulled up the carpet. We repainted everything in the front, pulled out some cabinets. We did a lot when we first got in here to make it way more comfortable for us. But the electricity worked. The plumbing worked for the most part. The 2 showers worked. And we were able to bring up people within the first 6 months of us moving into the space. But we also spent 2 or 3 years researching what kind of property we wanted to take on. But when you think about what's hard, I got homies that are paying $1,700 a month each in a 2-bedroom apartment where they don't get to control the noise around them at all. They're not allowed to even make music in their own apartment because their neighbors who pay even more than them complain about any type of noise. They don't get to control if something goes wrong with the building. You know, if there's an infestation of some sort, it travels from unit to unit to unit. There's so many things, the amount of stress that they have in order to generate that much income. The number of people that I know that talk about, well, if we move to a rural area, how would we make money? Well, how do you make money in the city? A lot of people I know in the city are making money and still in debt. And so like, yeah, it's this weird game of I got a good job, I'm making my $80,000, $90,000, but to do all the things that keep me in the loop, I still got a credit card. To do all the things that keep me in the loop, I might have a little side hustle and try to do X, Y, or Z. Why? You know? And so I think the idea that it's too difficult to do land-oriented projects is something I would challenge. I would admit that it is difficult, but not too difficult. And especially when I think about, man, doing art and music in New York City, the number of times that you are going out on a limb, like you are really taking a gamble on how your time, effort, money is going to be spent. No return on investment, no idea if it ever pays off, no structure or security, no health care, no no dental care, no eye optic care. And people figure it out, whether they're selling comedy tickets, working at the pizza shop, working 2 jobs, little side hustles, starting their own business. People do so many things to stay in these major cities, whether it's go through a 1.5 years of interviews to get a job, to still be in debt once you start living the life of now you got your new apartment and now you got this and that, and to go to the job you need new clothes. And when I think of the amount of stress and strain, people working in jobs they hate in order to pay to live in a city because the city's cool. And they think, well, if we're not in the city, what will we do with our lives? When we're here, we go to work, we come home, the apartment either needs to be really, really comfortable because, like, obviously work isn't. So I got to spend a whole lot of money to deck my crib out and have the big TVs and projectors and $4,000 couches and $2,000 dishware and all this other stuff. And then if I don't want to be inside, I can do a Broadway show, $200. I can go out to dinner, spend $150 for me and my partner to get some drinks and get some food. We can, whatever it is, it's spending a lot of money as you work really hard to make the money. You get out here and people are like, spend money. Like, why are you doing that? It's unnecessary. And it changes the whole thing when you realize we try to make so much money that we're spending on superfluous things. And don't get me wrong, you can spend money out here. Like, you want to buy a tractor, that's $30,000, $15,000, depending on what kind you get. You want to get a skid steer, that might be $50,000, $60,000. You want to get a big tractor, you might be over $100,000. You want farm equipment. So I'm not telling people come out to the cut and start a farm. I'm not saying you got to go $400,000 in debt in order to get out of the city. But what I am saying is, depends on your mind state, the options you have. And besides this house, there's never been a thing that as I work on it, its value increases. If I buy a car, as soon as I leave the lot, its value decreases. When I buy music equipment, I'm not buying, vintage synths and doing amazing upkeep on them. I use the music equipment till it either breaks or I get into something new, but I still keep the old equipment. I don't resell it. Now, I've had a homie that made some money reselling synthesizers, but he also spent a whole lot of money buying old synthesizers. So it's very speculative. He was smart, so he knew how to flip the market. But I know a ton of other people that they're not able to flip equipment like that. And so having land or having a house, whether it's you buy a property that has nothing on it and figure out how to get it zoned and get a well installed and a septic installed, you've increased the value of that property. Whether those elements are there and you get a house built on it or you yourself build a structure on it, increases the property. Whether you get an old vacant lot and then actually touch it up and cut down the dead trees and clean up everything, take out the old rock and concrete and fill, then you've increased the value. If there's a house there from the 1790s and you buy it for $60,000 or $70,000, you strip it all the way down to everything, clean out everything, make it so that the next person doesn't have to do that step. You can then sell the house as bones. And I'm not saying you're gonna make a lot of money, but there are ways to flip that, especially if there had been arrears or taxes or other issues with the property that you can get taken care of. If you get a property that is just the bones and you got homies that work in construction or you yourself are handy, right there, if you can save half the cost of building something because you and your friends own a business building things together, then that's it right there. I mean, buying a $70,000 to a $90,000 house, spending 6 months to a year to fix it and then selling it for $150,000, it doesn't sound like a lot initially, right? Especially if there are 3 or 4 people working on it. In a year, you're each going to make, $20,000 or something like that. But once you know how to do that, or once you do that well, or once you start working with real estate agents, or you work with local folks who know that you'll buy houses from them, there's some things that can come from that. If you're a person that is more into the commune style of doing things, and you and 5 homies buy a house from the 1790s, and it takes you 15 years to fix it, y'all got a mission for 15 years. Humanity needs missions. And I don't mean go convert people's religion. I don't mean go tell everyone, I'm not telling you what you should do specifically, but one of my missions is autonomy, space, food security, peace, love, justice. And for me, that seems to come down to land and space and not having your space occupied by nefarious actors, right? And so I would say if you got homies that are down for it, you could spend 15 years, trying to get into a specific kind of social status bracket in a city, or you and your 5 homies could buy a property out, 3-4 hours away from the city, spend 15-20 years converting a house from 1790s into a modern house that then would be worth who knows how much more, but also how much fun you'll have during that time period, figuring out what to do with the land, the house, the space, as your relationships change with people. And nothing is like permanent, so that you can buy property with the homies, and after 1 or 2 years, if one of them doesn't want to do it, they can sell to the others, their equity to the others. Or you can have kind of time related agreements and how you co-own land. There's so many options on how to approach it, but I'm worried that we are being convinced into being renters. I'm worried that the history hasn't been shown enough that when we are all renters, the landlords start doing things that in no way benefit us because we have no power. And if you read the Constitution or look at early documents in the United States, it was the landowners that have the full rights. The renters and those who are subjugated do not have full rights. And I'm not saying we're going to go back to the 1700 days, but I will say, if you think about it, in a whole lot of neighborhoods, the developers and the people who don't even live in those neighborhoods, but who own those buildings in the neighborhoods, have more say and influence politically than the people that inhabit the buildings that are renters. And if you think about tax revenue that the city or municipality generates, they care about that stuff. And developers generate way more tax revenue than an individual person. And when everyone's a renter, then are they going to listen to the renters who are not contributing to the tax roll? Or are they going to listen to the developers that are actually paying for schools? So why not be the ones to dictate how the schools run, who run the schools, what happens on the land, what you require in your municipality? And that means being more involved in actual land ownership. That means not just developers owning buildings. That means not just companies and LLCs full of people that don't live in an area dictating policy for that area. And so, I mean, again, I'm not saying it's all easy, but I also come from a background where we don't really do easy like that. Like if you wanted to rap, when I started rapping, the clubs you had to go to, the type of venues you had to go to, the situations you had to place yourself in order to do your art, that wasn't easy. The figuring out how to tour when you had no money. Half your homies didn't have licenses or had DUIs and couldn't drive. Others had jobs so they couldn't leave. But figuring out how to get around the country and share the art and share the music, that wasn't easy. Like figuring out how to connect. Like at a certain point, we did over 100 shows in a year as Rosetta Stone. Figuring out how to do that was not easy. Like figuring out how to open up for Beatnuts and Smith & Wesson and Dose One, Bus Driver, Sleep, Josh Martinez, Mestizo, I mean, a ton. I can't remember everybody. Like we've done so many shows and like being parts of festivals where there are artists you would have heard of. Also, none of that was easy, but we figure it out. And so humans do hard shit. So the notion that getting land is hard. Yo, it's hard to pay $1,500 a month rent for 12 months of the year. Add that up. That's over 10 G's, like 13 G's in 1 year. And you live in the same place for 5 years. You've given these people $60,000. That's hard. If you spent that $60,000 and invested in yourself, what would happen? Now, I get it. What do you do for those 5 years so that you can hold on to your $60,000? Now you're asking good questions. What is it we need to do in order to stop spending money so that we can get our own space? And then once we have our own space, it's funny, we all think we need a job from somebody else. Once you have your own land or space, why can't that be how you generate revenue? Whether it's through, we got a sawmill up here and we're starting to get into some outdoor furniture. Whether it's you grow flowers and sell flowers. Whether it's you get into some agricultural elements. Whether you set up a stand and let other people lease space from you. Whether you use your land for cattle grazing, like let your neighbors rent or lease your land for cattle grazing, storage. I mean, there's so many things you can do once you have land and space where you generate revenue from the land. And this is, I don't mean in an extractive, exploitative way. I mean in a simple, like if you read Karl Marx, Das Kapital, Understanding of Capitalism, the two things that are most difficult for a business are the labor and the rent. Like if you're a capitalist and you don't own your land, then you'll have to pay another landowner in order to rent and run your business. Well, at a certain point, that landowner can say, we don't like your business. Like me, let's say I'm getting interested in some, I wasn't a fan of either Democrats or Republicans in the past election. So I was doing these t-shirts that said, don't vote for evil. And I had pictures of both symbols. And let's say I had a t-shirt shop and I was renting from someone that had a warehouse. They saw my t-shirts and were like, oh, we don't like that at all because we are fill in the blank of whichever party. And you can't be making material that's anti our party and working out of our shop. They could find a way to put me out. Now, obviously, I have a lease. There are things we can do legally. But like at the end of the day, if your landlords don't want you at a spot, it's only but a time before they make it difficult enough and you end up leaving. And so then labor. And so if you're able to own the space and you and your friends are the source of labor, then you don't need another job. Like, you then are not the capitalist in that case, but you now are like the yeoman out of Adam Smith's work, Wealth of Nations, where it's small, family size, friends, community based, and a business that actually has meaning and use value where you are. So up here, I could have tried to start whatever type of art, music shop, maybe an art gallery, and try to charge people $600 for some of my artwork, which is what I would charge in the city. How few people out here are going to pay $600 for artwork? Like almost none. And how fair is that of me to suggest a person that might, be making, I think the average income out in the town where we are is for single men is somewhere around $26,000. So how am I going to try to charge somebody $600 or $800 for artwork, knowing what their monthly income might be in this area? I can't sell my artwork for only $50, $100. How does that make sense for me? So selling art may not be the best idea in this area. But when I go to the auction and I buy building supplies, like I bought a whole bunch of tin metal sheeting, been selling it for the past 6 months. I bought a whole pallet of wood planks and beams, sold that to Boss Landscape up here. And Boss, they do serious business. They're like one of the big landscaping and outdoor folks. And so there's a way to generate revenue. If I knew how to drive a heavier vehicle, like if I had a CDL, you can make money hauling out here all day. If I knew more about physical labor and like cleaning out horse stalls, could make money. If I knew how to shoe horses and clean out horses' hooves that have been damaged, could make money. If I could go through, I don't know how many things that you cannot do in the city, but that are available here as sources of income and revenue. But you're not going to know in the city. You have to get out to the area and see what do people actually need. And your land can be a source for some of that. Whether it's, again, we got apple trees right here. If we wanted, we could turn this into an apple orchard. Is that what we want to do? That's not what I want to do. So it's also being cognizant of what your wants are. Like, where can you devote the time and effort? What is it you're going to be willing to do that excites you? In the same way that you're willing to do in the city. I know people that commute an hour and a half each way to work. Think about the pollution and the noise and all the other stuff in the city. I still love the people in the city. I still love the architecture. I love the convenience. There are things I still love about the city. I love the diversity, the vibrancy, especially Brooklyn and New York City. There's so much that I've gained from having access that I'm talking about both. I'm talking about the hybrid theory. I'm talking about don't just move to the woods. And I'm saying don't just live your whole life in the city. If you are a person that wants to explore, most of the country is rural. If you're a person that wants to explore and see how different this country is, most of it is not densely inhabited. And so that means getting comfortable going through the rural parts of the country. I know as a black person, it's like, yo, rural parts of the country, Confederate flags. You're not wrong. You're not lying. Every state I've been to, there are Confederate flags in rural areas. All right. And for people that live in rural areas and don't know, you rarely see that in the cities up north. Like, you rarely ever are driving down the street and see a Confederate flag in a window, in the front yard, any of that stuff up north. Go out to Vinton, Louisiana, you're going to see the Confederate flags. You go up to certain parts of Maine, you're going to see it. Pennsylvania, you're going to see it. California, you're going to see it. New York State, not even, these weren't slave states, still have the Confederate flags up. But on the other hand, I've been to over 35 states, if not more, and I've never felt threatened. Now, the places where I could tell they didn't like black people, but there's never been a place that I've been where I felt threatened or I felt like I was in danger due to like being black or that some racist person was going to harm me. Now, again, I got my little antenna. After decades of doing hip hop, I can sense a vibe. So the places I do not go inside, I do not stop. I pull up and I look and I'm like, nah, not today. So you also have to be discerning. And part of how we chose where we bought land is we looked for 3 years. You know, we were driving all around 2-3 years and got a vibe of the people first. Before we bought the residential property, we had just 15 acres of land. And so we met the people that are out where the land is first before we decided to buy a house and just jump into the community and not know what we were getting ourselves into. So again, I'm not saying anyone should do what I did. I'm saying if you're living in the city and you're like, yo, this shit is crazy, the rent's too high, nothing's affordable, it's too densely packed, it's unhealthy, can't get fresh food, I want more space, I want fresh air, I want clean water, I want to see the groundhogs run around in the yard next to the rabbits, see all the birds flying by, the woodpeckers, the hummingbirds, I want to hear the insects at night, I want to see the goldenrod and the different plants and maple trees and ashes and everything out here, then it's not as hard as you think. It is possible. It's not impossible. It's not too difficult. Imagine all you've done to get where you are now, how difficult that was. So this actually may be easier than you think. But if you are a person interested in land, holler at me. All 2026, I'm telling folks. I'm going to start directing people. Come up near us. Like, there are open spaces. There's a house for $79,000 10 minutes away from us. We'll help you figure out how to get it rebuilt, remodeled. You know, it's going to be start to school on how we self-teach each other how to rehab places and generate life experience as well as some revenue from it. All right. But holler at me. I have some wall paneling to put on this little outdoor shed. This has been an adventure. I finally am making space for stuff outside. And so we got the walls up partially. This back wall is up. We got the inside wall up. Yeah. There's some stuff in here. This is some of my artwork. Some of my wood sculpture. But we got the roof up here. So we're going to have a nice little dry enclosed space for things like our power washer. Well, this is one of my first attempts to do a building that needs to stay dry when it snows up here or rains. So I got to get back to work. I'm a holler.